Hi, folks. Welcome to Never on the Back Foot. In tonight's discussion, which is part two of a very exciting IPL preview series that we've been doing, we are diving into the squads of Delhi, RCB, KKR, LSG, and Rajasthan Royals. For those who missed part one, it's definitely there on our YouTube channel, so check that out. Naman has shared his lovely insights, and tonight also we will hear a lot about these teams, that we are kind of excited to talk about. So on that note, hi Naman, welcome back to part two of this preview series. A lot of interesting snippets and news have just been dropping around, which we did kind of discuss at length yesterday as well. But probably let's kickstart our discussion with Delhi Capitals, right? I mean, this is a team that a lot of people feel, hey, they kind of deserve to go the extra mile and actually end up winning the IPL. And the way they've kind of constructed this squad as well gives you an inclination that probably there is like the right mix of players and everything. So first things first, what did you make of the squad, and happy with how it's looking?
Yeah, I believe they've had one of the better auctions, to be honest. It hasn't really been talked about so much in the circuits, but they have had a pretty good auction with regards to covering all their bases. They have good batting options, very good bowling options. They have a good mix of all rounders in the middle as well, which they can rotate around. And I'm pretty sure Akshar Patel, the captain, is going to optimize all his resources at his disposal. And really looking forward to the way he leads the team. And I'm honestly glad that KL is just playing as a batter more or mostly because he needs to play in that kind of a zone once in the IPL and just unleash himself. So more or less, I feel that the environment looks pretty healthy. They have senior pros like Faf in the setup as well, who are there to just guide all the youngsters around, there to give all the advice that Aksar might need from him. So it looks like a very feel good environment of the team. If you go through the team sheet, it gives you a lot of good feelings about all the players who are there. So, like, I feel the team is overall pretty balanced. They've got a decent mix of players over there. Again, good balance between youth and experience there as well. So yeah, I mean, I think they've not been spoken about as much as they deserve to be honest.
I mean, here, Naman, I think I'll just probably interject and get your thoughts on Akshar Patel, the skipper, right? Because KL Rahul was the big ticket buy, and a lot of people pegged him to, kind of be the captain. But clearly, Akshar Patel coming out of syllabus and, being chosen as captain, I think some set of fans kind of saw it coming because, the way Akshar Patel has been, groomed and developed at DC. But excited to see Akshar, the skipper.
Yeah, I am pretty excited because see, first of all, he was named the Indian vice captain quite recently as well in the T20 side. So that itself were indications that his mind, his overall captaincy tactics, his leadership abilities are being rated at some level in the Indian setup itself. So after that, being nominated as the skipper for Delhi is not a big surprise, to be honest. And he has been with the franchise for so long now. I believe he's been there since 2020, and that's like around 5 or 6 years now. So he has, and when you think of Akshar Patel, although he played with Punjab during his first half, but it's at Delhi where he has actually risen up the ranks and staked his claim for a proper Indian spot that he's consistently held now. He's really grown and matured as a player in that particular setup. So I'm really looking forward to the way he goes about his business. Of course, it's going to be slightly challenging because he has to make sure that he backs himself at the right place. He has to bowl himself at the right stages of the game, and at the same time manage all the resources around him, which I'm pretty confident he's going to optimize it pretty well along with the coaching setup that they have over there.
Fair enough, and probably I'll also throw this question open to you about the bowling attack itself, right? I mean, Ujjwal again cheekily goes on to add that the best thing about DC is that 20 overs of bowling is sorted, right? I mean, just look at their bowling resources. They have Mitchell Stark, they have Akshar Patel himself, they have Kuldeep Yadav as well. So, Naman, somewhere do you think that this gives Delhi Capitals the kind of edge that they would want against oppositions, ideally, and on any given surface, this trio will come good with the others to follow?
Well, undoubtedly, I feel they have one of the more well-rounded attacks across the season in all the teams. They have somebody like a Mitchell Stark who can unleash 2 overs of swing at front, and he can be lethal at the death as well. They have somebody like a Natarajan who has been a death over specialist across the seasons for Sunrisers Hyderabad. And then they have somebody like a Mukesh Kumar as well who can possibly bowl across the innings wherever it's required. He can bowl a couple up front, bowl a couple in the middle, and even at the death, he has shown his prowess in the recent times, even for India in certain games. So all these three bowlers bring a different variety to the play. Stark is the one who will swing it up front. Natarajan the death guy, and Mukesh is the one who can do the job across the innings. Along with that, you have two amazing spinners in Aksar and Kuldeep. Like both of them bring different variety. Both of them have been immensely successful for India in the recent times and were instrumental in our wins in the T20 World Cup as well as the Champions Trophy recently. So these five bowlers, Ujjwal rightly mentions that the 20 overs are more or less sorted. They do not have to think too much about it. Or on the odd day, if somebody gets hit too much, then they might require somebody to chip in with a few overs in between. But other than that, it's pretty much sorted, to be honest.
And even just talking about this aspect of Harry Brook, pulling out of the IPL, he's possibly looking at a 2-year ban. But Ujjwal's point again makes a lot of sense because Brook's exclusion means that Faf du Plessis is your surety in that playing 12, right? I mean, Faf's also been appointed vice captain at the right young age of 40. So, Naman, your thoughts on Faf's appointment for this role, and just excited again to see how he goes this season.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I would have included Faf in my first 11 regardless. If Brook was there or not, I would have picked Faf ahead of him. And I was probably foreseeing KL to bat in the middle order anyway, because last year, even at Lucknow, he had expressed that desire, but it was not met. And even towards the end, we saw like the owners of Lucknow also saying that we want players who play for the team and do not look at their own personal wishes of where they want to play. So that pretty much gave it away that, yeah, KL did want to bat in the middle order, but the owners were not really agreeing with that, and that is possibly one of the reasons why it did not work out for KL to continue at LSG. So this is where KL gets his opportunity, and yeah, Brook pulling out is probably a blessing in disguise for them, because, in my opinion, I would have picked the same 11 or 12 that is going to be picked now. Without Brook, he would have been there at the bench for me. But now it makes things very simple. And Faf, of course, like he's he's probably around his 40s now, but he's as fit as he's ever been. He's still, like, when I think of Faf du Plessis, what I think is the guy running behind at mid off or mid on and pulling up those stunners right above his head. That is the image of Faf that I get still now. There's nothing else that I can think of him when I hear the name Faf du Plessis. So his fitness has never been a concern. Even in the past 3 years at RCB, he has batted astonishingly well. He has really scored at a quick rate. He's got the runs to show as well. But I don't know why people have not really been satisfied with him. I still thought that RCB might go and pick him at the auction, but once they got solved, it was pretty evident that, yeah, Faf is probably not going to fit the bill over there. So fair call by RCB, and when Delhi snatched him up, he would have been a great captaincy candidate as well. But maybe Delhi are just looking at probably playing it safe and backing Aksar the captain, which is a right call in itself. And Faf being there as a vice captain is there to just guide the troops, help Aksar take certain calls on the field, and just being there as his advisor. So really excited to see how Faf goes there at the top, and he'll have boom 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 Jake Rizamagog to partner with, who has recently scored I think 30 or 40 ball 100 in the warm up games. So yeah, the things look pretty sorted at the top of the order for them.
Yeah, I mean, as you rightly said, at least at the top of the order, a lot of the options are giving us a really good case of themselves. But now, somewhere, do you still think it's going to be challenging for Delhi to, kind of find that right batting order, especially the middle order, right? Because somewhere you'd still want to, not put all your eggs in the top order performing, but you need your middle order to perform as well. So I think Ujjwal's comment here also can be taken that he says in the long run, he hopes that they preserve the combo of Stubbs and Ashutosh. I mean, both of them are young and talented. So yeah, I mean, how do you see this middle order shape up for Delhi?
So, like, a lot depends on where KL is going to bat. I think the options are at number 3 or number 4. But to be honest, if you put him at number 3, it is just going to confuse him. And you don't want somebody like KL Rahul to be confused. Please, God forbid, no. I would say play KL at 4. He has had great success over there for RCB. He has shown it in the middle order, and I think it's a role that will suit him well. He'll have a clear mind. He will go there. He'll either walk in the case of a crisis, or he'll walk in where things have been set, and he just have to continue the momentum. He'll walk in with a clear mind, whether he has to play slightly defensively, play around, knock a few balls, and then go for runs, or does he just have to walk in and go for runs directly? So that way, I think KL at 4 is going to be the right way to go about it. Then you can have somebody like an Abhishek Porel at 3, who has shown it in the past how good he has been. He's a great young lad. And sandwiching, like at the top, if you have Faf along with Jake Fraser Mago, again, an experienced guy, and Fraser is the one who's the young blood. Then Porel at 3. So you're basically sandwiching two youngsters between two experienced candidates and giving them the license to just go hell for leather and do not bother about getting out. So that kind of mindset, if they're giving these youngsters and having somebody like a KL, also gives them the assurance that okay, even if we fail, there is somebody like a KL who's going to be the crisis man and who is going to shepherd the innings ahead. Then once you move on from KL at 4, you've got a Stubbs at 5. Man, oh man, Stubbs has been superb. The past season or two, the way he's been playing, he has been amazing. Just, and even for South Africa in the recent times, the way he's been playing, I mean, it is unfortunate that he could not find a place in the South African 11. But despite that, he's a great talent and definitely one that DC has to groom in the future. So he would slot in at 5, slightly lower by Stubbs standard, but I think within that particular 11, this is how it works out the best for the entire setup as the balance. Then you have got somebody like Ashutosh coming in at 6. So like over there, it's a choice. You can maybe plug in Ashutosh at 6 and Aksar at 7, or you can go with Aksar at 6 and Ashutosh at 7, depending on the situation. If just 2 overs or 3 overs are left, then maybe Ashutosh can come in and hit a few. But if a good number of overs are left and you need somebody to knock it around and play for a while, then Aksar would come in at 6 and Ashutosh would slot down at 7. That's how I see the entire middle order shaping up. And then once we have reached so far, then it's pretty straightforward. You got Mitchell Stark who can come in at 8 and tong the ball, and then you have the three Indian bowlers in Kuldeep. Then you have Mukesh Kumar and you have Peanut Rajan. They would also be bringing in an impact player in between who would be a batting candidate, and over there they can bring in somebody like a Samir Rizvi, who in recent times like who was very spoken about candidate in the previous year, and he hit his first ever delivery in IPL for a 6 against Rashid Khan. So that's the way he announced himself on the stage. Although he couldn't really make it big in that season, but he's been doing pretty well for UP in the domestic circuit, and he's probably their likely impact player candidate in case they need somebody to just finish the innings, or if they need somebody to bat around for a while, then Karun Nair is the guy that they can rely on, who we've all seen has had one of the best domestic seasons in his career so far. So he has been pretty good. And okay, I hope they shift to Karun. Okay, yeah. I mean, if Porel doesn't do well, then Karun is the obvious candidate to go in this slot and at number 3. He is their basically Indian batting backup across the positions, so he can slot in over there. If an overseas batter goes out of form or is not well, has picks up an injury, then there's somebody like a Donovan Ferreira sitting on the bench, who is also a great talent and he can really hit the ball big. So they have got very good backups when it comes to their batting lineup. So I do not see that being a major issue. When you look at it, like it won't appear to be the most dangerous batting lineups, although you have a lot of aggressive players as well as players who can play situations pretty well. But it is a batting lineup that can give them a certain amount of consistency in the way that they will go about their business. Their model is one that would probably not give you those 280 290s in every game, but if they are going on song, they can definitely give you 220s 230s on a consistent basis, and a lot depends on how the opening partnership would go. If Fraser McGurk goes berserk across the season, then yeah, we see how things can go over there.
I mean, all fair points there, Naman, and as glowingly, we are looking at Delhi and we have rated them with all their strengths. But are there any weaknesses that you still want to, kind of factor in? It could be possibly with, the playing combination itself, not having enough backups and everything. Like, have you thought about it?
Yeah, I see. First of all, with the bowling in itself, if something happens to Stark, they are heavily relying on Stark. If something happens to him, their only backup is in the form of Dushmanta Chamira, who has, back in 2022, he started off on a decent note for Lucknow, but didn't really make it quite big. He has himself been scarred with injuries across his career. So he's not a very, him being as a first backup for a Stark doesn't introduce a lot of confidence. So that can be a potential weakness if in case Stark doesn't hit the ground running, if in case he picks up an injury along the way. So that's really going to be concerning for them. How are they going to replace him? One option is that they can bring in Mohit Sharma into the picture, who is another impact player candidate for them. We've seen how well he's done for Gujarat Titans, the kind of comeback he had, and except those 2 balls against Jadeja, he could have been the hero for their back-to-back title victory over there in 23 as well. So Mohit is another candidate for the impact player and in the bowling attack if in case any of the bowlers is injured. And if in case he comes in place for a Stark, then they can also find a way to play Donovan Ferreira in the 11. So then you can have a situation where all your four overseas players are batters in the form of Fraser McGurk, Faf du Plessis, Tristan Stubbs, and Donovan Ferreira. Now, those four are quite powerful. They can really score the big runs. So, like, still, their bowling attack with Stark and without Stark, you can imagine the difference that would be there. And apart from that, with regards to the spin backup, if God forbid anything happens to either Aksar or Kuldeep, they do not have a known spin option in their ranks. So it is very important for them that the two of them play throughout the season without any injury, without any scare.
Yeah, I mean, for Delhi's sake, they would really hope that, all of their resources really work out well for them. Again, Ujjal's comment here that Akshar is a cool brain of his own. Gujaratis are good at managing resources. Not sure how much of it is a stereotype, but then, okay. And he also actually goes on to add that Stubbs' maturity was clearly on show during that second T20I versus India. Which kind of validates your point of how, Tristan Stubbs has been underutilized by South Africa, and hopefully, for Delhi, we will see him possibly get a lot more games. And before we move on to another very interesting team, Naman, let's quickly get your prediction on where Delhi Capitals will end up. I mean, do you see a playoff finish for them, or again, you just want to give them the season to like ease in and then probably expect the returns to come in next year?
I do see them qualifying. It might be an unpopular opinion, but I think they have a balanced squad. Barring injuries, if they manage to put the first choice 12 or 13 on the ground consistently, if their bowling attack goes without any injury, if the batting starts hitting, I feel they have it in them to make it to the playoffs this time.
Yeah, I think Ujjwal also goes on to echo a very similar sentiment that DC is qualifying provided everyone's fit and they kind of get the ground running from the get go. But yeah, let's talk about my favorite team and possibly Naman's second favorite team, because I don't know what is Naman's favorite team, but let's talk about RCB, the team that I think we decided collectively to keep on day to to still kind of keep the excitement. So Naman, what did you make of the sport this time around? A lot of interesting things happening. I know people would be feeling very tempted to talk about the unbox event and all of that. But before we kind of jump into that, like, just what did you make of the squad and happy with the kind of purchases?
Well, first things first, like you mentioned, second favorite team. Well, I'm a neutral, and we know a certain neutral whose favorite team is RCB. So, yeah, technically that's correct. But yeah, anyway, jokes apart, I feel we've had one of the better auctions in terms of getting an overall team composition right. This time, their auction strategy has been quite different from the traditional way. They have not really splurged on big ticket players. They have made very rational buys in that regard. They've tried to put together a good balance, and they've actually, like, even the videos that we saw about them strategizing, I don't know how much of it was real and how much of it was just for PR after the auction was done. But it seems that, yeah, they were using their mind and the kind of insights people like Andy Flower and DK brought to the table. They've, and of course Mo Babat being there as well. So the auction strategy was much better than the previous seasons that we've seen so far, and they do have a pretty balanced unit. Now, as we go on to further to analyze which department clicks and which does not, so in terms of the auction, among the better ones in RCB's history for sure, but whether it's the better one in the season or better one among all the teams, that let's go on to discuss and explore further.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of divided opinions from RCB fans themselves about the kind of auction now that RCB had. I mean, there were expectations that they would go after like a KL Rahul, homeboy coming back, or Rishabh Pant, Shreyas Iyer, but clearly that wasn't the case. And somewhere they decided, hey, let's look inward and get someone like a Rajat Patidar as our captain, which has again drawn in a lot of mixed reactions. People are not entirely happy about it, but you kind of see, RCB go in that whole damage control mode and release videos of Virat and like the entire support staff kind of backing this decision. So again, Naman, your thoughts on Rajat, the captain? Recently, we saw him, captain Madhya Pradesh in the Syed Mushtaq Ali Trophy, and he, I think, kind of guided them to the final as well. Gives you good impressions that he has a stable head on his shoulder, and captaincy will hopefully not weigh him down.
See, when you talk about an RCB, one of the major things that go on to decide the captain is how would the equation of the captain be with Virat Kohli. I mean, let's be honest, it's a very critical factor to consider. And look at the options that they had if Virat had decided that he doesn't want to lead. The only other options were probably in Krunal Pandya. He was one potential option, and a long shot in Josh Hazelwood because he had been the vice captain for Australia for a while. Apart from these two and Rajat Patidar, there were no other real options. Okay, with Krunal, I mean, he's been leading Baroda. He has led Lucknow in the absence of KL Rahul in the 2023 season. But then again, you do not see him as the inspiring figure in the team as the captain. And he has had some of his aggression issues in the recent times, and some teammates over there at RCB as well. He has had some historical issues with them. But again, those things aside, he's probably not the guy you would want to name the captain of your franchise. Then the other option comes in the form of Josh Hazelwood, who again has had his fitness issues, and you would not really want him to be burdened with captaincy. Just let him bowl and play. So the only option left was in Rajat Patidar. And about him, he's been doing well in IPL. He got his chances for India, but probably didn't show the best. He's been leading Madhya Pradesh in the recent times, and he's been doing great as a batter. But I think it's just a time that you're showing your trust, you're showing your faith in that guy, and this is a very good sign from RCB because not only have they named another Indian player as captain, they've actually retained that Indian batter in the team, which has been very rare. RCB haven't really invested big on Indian batters. I believe for the longest time, Rahul Dravid was the second highest run scorer, but only recently Rajat Patidar probably equaled him or overtook him, and Devdutt Padikkal is over there. So like these are the top three or four. So good thing is that currently they have the top three run scorers in this squad. So that's a good sign. And about Patidar's captaincy, I believe with Virat Kohli over there still, he was really going to guide him throughout, and it's going to be a great learning curve for him to just understand how to deal with his resources around, and it's going to be challenging, no doubt about that. But then, like it's baptism by fire for him. So he's got a good head, and let's hope that he really picks it up, and let's hope it doesn't really impact his batting because him being there at number 3 or number 4 is absolutely critical for RCB's success. Exactly how Ujjwal mentioned.
Yeah, no, I think Ujjwal also goes on to add a similar point that we just can't afford him to have that sort of an okayish season. I don't know if I've seen a lot of reels and posts, but Rajat Patidar's numbers against spin is like remarkable. So hopefully we get to see that sort of a blitzkrieg knock coming from him as well. Let's also probably take this comment before I get to another point. Ujjwal also feels that RCB should have probably sneaked in someone like a Steve Smith in the team to play a similar role, like Rahane in KKR. Now, but do you kind of agree with that? A lot of people, I think, besides Ujjwal as well, felt hey, let's get Steve Smith back into RCB, and it could be such a throwback to the past with Virat and Steve Smith in the same team. But do you see some logic in it though?
I mean, it's a very left field call, but to be honest, if you have a Virat in the setup, you do not really need another big player of that caliber like Steve Smith to be there in the setup. Virat is there, and then too many conflicting thoughts can also lead to poor results. So you do not want that kind of a situation, and you already have a good think tank, people like Dinesh Karthik sitting there in the dugout. So it's not really necessary to have somebody like a Steve Smith. And when it comes to the role in terms of batting, then they have Devdutt Padikkal in their ranks who can do the same role. So I do not really see a lot of logic in terms of getting somebody like Steve Smith there in the setup.
Yeah, no, makes sense. And talking about Virat Kohli himself, I mean, this time we're going to see a new opening pair, right? We have the likes of Virat, who is potentially going to be opening with Phil Salt. So, Naman, are you excited to see this combination, approach the power play? I mean, Virat and Phil Salt. I mean, such an interesting combination. I mean, we've seen the kind of synergy that Virat had with Faf for the longest time and the kind of partnerships they built. But with Phil Salt again, do you see something like that happening?
Yeah, I mean, last year Phil Salt came as a replacement for KKR, and the way he set the stage on fire, it was surreal to watch. So RCBians would definitely hope that he brings the same, just have a very straightforward, same kind of a season, and just go for it. But the only difference is Phil Salt was playing at that rate when he had Sunil Narayan or the other end going at the similar rate as well. Over here, it is to be seen whether we know Virat Kohli is not the guy who will go to hit every ball. He will take his time. He will bat at 130, 140, and then go on to accelerate towards the end. That's the game that suits him, and that's the game that he should stick with. There's no need to be fancy about it. There's no need to go baseball about it. He should stick with his game. And now that's going to be critical. Wherein, if there have been an over or two where Virat has, probably not sneaked in a lot of runs, if there are 3-4 dot balls at consistent consecutively, then it's going to be seen how Phil Salt deals with the situation. Whether he just goes for a rash shot or whether he just takes a calculated approach in that kind of a scenario. It's going to be an interesting opening combo. Ideally, yes, Phil Salt is the one who's got to go big from the beginning, and Kohli is the one who will, just time the ball, take his time, hit those gaps for force, and just go on to accelerate the way he's done throughout his career. So it will be exciting. And a ground like Chinnaswamy, I believe Phil Salt is going to absolutely love the deck over there, the boundary sizes. I mean, he just looked to hit every ball over the head of the bowler or over the head of the fielders and hope to get a six. So really exciting to see how Salt goes over there at Chinnaswamy. And let's just hope that his recent returns for England do not really impact the way he goes. Like he's been getting those starts, but he hasn't really had that big knock of late. So let's just hope that when he's back to IPL in that setup, he's just going out there and playing the way he knows how to play best.
Absolutely. I mean, if he can replicate what he did for KKR, here in this RCB setup, I think as fans, there'd be no room for complaints at all. And I think another criticism for RCB, at least like in all these years of IPL, has to be the fact that, their pace bowling department or bowling department at large, just hinged on certain players to do the heavy lifting, or it was just non-existent. But this time around, just look at the seam attack, right? You have Josh Hazelwood, you have Bhuvneshwar Kumar, and even the spin department. I mean, I know there's no like major name there, but it still gives you some confidence. So, Naman, how do you think RCB's bowling is shaping up? And again, is it giving you some confidence that it's better than previous seasons, but something?
See, it is more well-rounded. Like you just mentioned, that there's not one player who we are looking at to just carry the bowling altogether. There are multiple people involved who would have to really hunt in packs. So you have somebody like a Bhuvneshwar Kumar, veteran of the IPL, and even right now, despite everything, despite all the noise around him, he has still been one of the most consistent bowlers in the IPL. Even now, he has it in him to pick the buckets at the front in the power play, bowl at the death. Although he'll concede runs, but like the kind of IPLs we've been having, bowlers have been going for 20, 25 at the death in an over. Even there, if somebody like a Bhuvi is just squeezing in a 10 or a 12 run over, that is in itself an achievement for any bowling lineup. So Bhuvi is there. Hazelwood is one of the more underrated T20I bowlers. T20 bowlers should I rather say. He's had success with RCB in the past. He's had success with CSK in the past in the IPL. So, but he's also coming off after being off. He did not play the Champions Trophy. So it's going to be critical what kind of a rhythm he's coming in with. If he's bowling in rhythm, then we know what he can do. Apart from the two of them, they have an option of playing Lungi and Gidi, who has also been, slightly blow hot, blow cold in terms of the way he goes about. Certain games he'll pick the wicket, certain games he'll go for runs. And I haven't really understood what really he brings in a T20I setup. I'm sorry, like I've probably not seen enough of him. But yeah, it's hopefully this season, if he gets to play, I'll understand a bit more of him. And then in the young players, they have Yash Dayal, they have Rasik Dar Salam, they also have Nuwan Tushara in the ranks. So all these three are young blokes who have shown some potential in the past and can possibly bring some spice to the deck as well. But again, like you look through all of these bowlers, not one of them is gonna threaten you as a batter. If a Stark is teaming in, you would feel slightly threatened. If you have a movie coming in, you can think of stepping out to him like Butler himself did in the 2022 World Cup. He started stepping out, the keeper was called up, and that was the game. Movie couldn't stick to his line and length, and he was put under pressure. Similarly with Hazelwood as well. If he is able to clock 140 consistently, then fine. But if his pace is slightly down, even with him, the same thing can be done. The batters can step out and hit and keeper has to be sent up. So that can really distort the lines and lengths. With Rasik, he has shown potential with DC. With Yash Dayal, he has shown potential with RCB as well. But now they are known commodities. Now the analysts would have gone through their bowling. Now people expect them to deliver those returns. So it's going to be seen how they go through all of this. And that's about the pace attack. Now, if we talk about the spin, I mean, Krunal is the obvious candidate to start in the 11. Apart from Krunal, the only two known options that they have is in the form of Swapnil Singh, there is Suyash Sharma, and they also have Manoj Bhandage in the ranks. So Suyash Sharma has shown potential with KKR, but the fact that they probably did not retain him and did not really go that much for him at the auction, I don't know. Like maybe he's somebody who has probably been figured out, or we'll get to know as we go ahead into the season. So these are the only options in spin, unless you are counting on Liam Livingston and Jacob Bettel to give you spin consistently. So they've got a lot of all-rounders when it comes to the spin department. But like you mentioned, there's no out-and-out proper spinner in their ranks except Suyash Sharma. So are either expecting or hoping for him to give good returns like he has shown glimpses for KKR, or you're just banking on people like Krunal and Livingston to squeeze in a few overs in the middle without conceding too many runs.
Yeah, it's going to be a massive gamble in that regard for RCB. And our live chat as well, goes on to add some interesting observations. Ujjwal says that it's too early to predict, but I remember after PBK has picked up Shreyas and Arshdeep in the first 7 to 8 players, RCB was left with the highest purse. Looking at this squad, they could have possibly planned better. And Achal giving a very contrasting opinion by saying that this is one of the most balanced RCB squads since 2009. That's very specific. I think I'll have to take Nalan's comment as well. Really sweet, Nalan, of you. Thank you so much for the
Thanks,
love
man.
and
Yes.
yeah. And yeah, again, Ujjwal says that they left a lot of Indian guns, like Vaibhav Arora, Ishan Kishan, Natarajan, and more seasoned overseas guys like David Miller and Marcus Stoinis as well. So, number two, kind of agree with that sentiment because somewhere you again want RCB to kind of trust their core and go for those players that they kind of had envisioned, right, that they wanted to go after. But again, a few names they probably could have invested in hindsight.
Let's keep that comment on the screen for a while and go player by player. So you see, if you look at somebody like a Vaibhav Arora, like he is mostly been bowling in the power play. And if you are aiming to get somebody like a Bhuvi or a Josh Hazelwood in your team, then Vaibhav is probably not your first choice to go after. So they have that covered. I mean, let's just go by player. Vaibhav Arora, if you compare the pedigree, having somebody like Bhuvi and Hazelwood in your ranks is a notch higher. If you look at that, Ishan Kishan is a guy that I believe they could have definitely gone after. Like he is one guy they could have invested in him as a future captain, and he could have been there at the top order, and he would have been pretty good in the setup. He would have linked well. He would have enjoyed batting at Chinnaswamy, and them not going after him was a slight surprise for me, to be honest. But on the other hand, you've also got to look that they have got Phil Salt. He's gonna be their keeper. They've got Salt and Kohli at the top, and they had Patidar in the ranks already. So probably that's where they wanted to have a keeper who bats in the lower order. And if you're looking at an Indian keeper who bats in the lower order, Jitesh Sharma is the only name that comes to mind. Even in one of his recent interviews, he was being asked that in terms of batting striker, there are only 4 players of India who are above you, and the names were Sky, Abhishek, and a couple of more. And he goes on to add that, but I'm the only one who bats in the middle order. All of them are top order batters, and that's why I've been picked. I mean, that is actually true. He's shown that consistently for Punjab over 2 seasons. Last season wasn't his best, to be honest, but he has shown those glimpses. And in this kind of setup, he fits in perfectly well, especially in the conditions at Chinnaswamy. Now, if we come to talk about a Natarajan, his main skill is bowling at the death. So, and he, to be honest, has also had some injury concerns of late. In this kind of a bowling setup, they've probably looked at players who do not get injured that frequently throughout. And for depth, they have invested for in the long term in Rasik Salam and also in Yash Dayal, who has really come of age ever since those 5 6s against Rinku Singh. So looking at all together, just looking at the names that I've read so far out, I think they've had equal, if not better, players in their ranks. And then if you talk about overseas guys like Miller and Stoinis, well, then they've invested in Livingston for that regard. They've invested in Jacob Bettel for that regard. So even there, like Miller and Stoinis are seasoned guys, but Livingston, when he hits the ball big, the ball stays hit. Like some of his crazy hits for Punjab in 22, man, he can, sorry, 23, he can really hit the ball big. So I mean, it's probably one of those things. If you talk about Miller and Stoinis, it's more about who do you think suits better in your setup, and Livingston also gives you those few overs of spin. So I believe it's more or less a right call in my opinion. Yeah, and with Miller and Stoinis, I believe the Livingston is at par with all of those, with due respect to them. So Ishan is the only guy in your list, Ujjwal, that I feel they could have really gone after because he would have been a long-term prospect. Other than him, I think they've made pretty smart picks right through the auction.
Yeah, Naman, agree with you on that one, especially the Ishan Kishan pick. I mean, after Mumbai Indians let him, I'm like, come on, RCB has to go after someone like him, possibly groom him, as
Yeah.
the future captain. But
Just
anyway,
one more
that's
thing here. I still feel they could have also tried to get Glenn Phillips in the setup. He remained unsold right till the very end when Gujarat came in and sneaked him up. I think they could have really gone for Glenn Phillips. And then, Bethel would have been more of a backup to him. I'm not sure whether they had overseas slots left at that point because I remember them going pretty high for Lungi and Giri towards the end. If correct me if I'm wrong there. So Glenn Phillips would have really fit in well with the setup. Then you could actually afford to play Rajat Patidar at three, and then you could play, Phillips at four and Livingston at five, and just move them around. And then Jitesh coming in at six. That would really change the complexion of their entire batting unit. However, at the same time, you would use three overseas slots at the top. Then the only overseas guy you could play was Josh Hazelwood, which is going to be the case even now if they are going to play Bethel consistently at number three. So that's the only place where I think, they could have been slightly more smart. They could have really looked at Glenn Phillips as a viable option. But that's what Gujarat did in a smarter way, and they have him in their setup right now. And honestly, I rate him pretty high. So I always look out for where can he be utilized in the best manner. And I believe it is a what if for RCB in this auction for me.
Yeah, and I think as Ujjwal also correctly sums it up, long story short, their fortunes quite literally lie with the England players, right? I mean, really hope that they come good and we get to see some magic from them. Ujjwal also says that even somebody like an Ashutosh, right, for that finishing job would have possibly been ideal. But again, RCB did really do that. Nalin's point of I miss Umran Malik. Actually, Naman, on
Oh,
a
yeah.
very unrelated note, let's talk about Umran Malik, right? I mean, an absolute tearaway pace, just coming in with so much of expectations. Fast track, made an India debut, and all of that. But again, none of the teams really seemed that persistent to go after him and everything. But again, are you in Nalin's? Are you in agreement with Nalin's statement here that you actually miss Umran Malik and
Well, of
IPL will miss
course,
him?
being a fast bowling lover, I miss him dearly. But the only thing that we have to talk about here is the approach which we follow here. Let's draw a parallel right now. We've been hearing of Saqib Mahmood a lot over the past 5, 6 years. Ever since COVID struck, even before COVID, we've been hearing that he has been handed the special pace contract by the England Cricket Board. But we really didn't really see him play a lot for England during those times. We saw him in the squad, we saw him get a couple of games here and there, but didn't play a lot. So somebody like a Saqib, who who was noticed, came into the limelight, and then he was groomed properly. He was trained properly. It was made sure that his body is in the place where it can survive 40 overs in a Test match. He can bowl 10 and 10 overs in an ODI, and even those 4 overs in a high pressure T20. That's the way they groom somebody like Saqib. Here in India, what happened the moment Umran came onto the scene? Everybody got excited because of the pace that he brought to the table, and like, let's fast track him, let's fast track him, let's take him to the World Cup, let's do that, let's do this. You've got to ensure that he's bowling at that pace, but does he really have the longevity to bowl that consistently well? Now, this is what doesn't really happen here in India. We saw it with Umran Malik. Like, made his debut. He had pace, but did he really have the control over that pace? Did he really know what are the right areas to bowl in? He had Dale Steyn to mentor him at Sunrisers, and he really worked with him and improved him a bit further. But still, at that young age, with that kind of a talent, it is important to ensure that he's playing the right amount of domestic cricket first before he makes it to the Indian setup, and not just throw him in. This is something that we also saw with Mayank Yadav. He played those 2 games in the IPL. Everybody started, yeah, exactly, Achal. He played those 2 games. Everybody started hyping him up, and then he was out injured. He was just recovering. You brought him in the Indian setup, again played a few games, again got out injured. So with Indians, the thing is, when we speak about people in Australia, when we speak about bowlers in Pakistan who can bowl at such a tear away pace, their bodies are different. Their diet is different. They eat different kind of food. Here in India, we do not eat that kind of a food, and that is how the body is built differently. With Umran Malik, I believe he would have a very different diet than somebody like a Mayank would. I do not know their dietary preferences, to be honest, but I'm just taking an assumption basis their faith. So, somebody like Mayank Yadav, who's probably not having enough protein to build the kind of body that's required to bowl 150, 160 kicks consistently, how will his body take the toll of bowling that fast? Something or the other will go. Some or the other parts will require service and repair over a period of time. But this is something which is absolutely important to understand, and it's critical that these bowlers are trained in the right manner. They've given those kind of nutrition that they require to bowl at this pace, and if even after that their body is not made to sustain this pace for a long period of time, then let's just have him bowl slightly slower. No, what's the hurry? People bowling 140, 145 can also pick up those wickets. Pace is pace, yaar, mante hain. But that doesn't mean you end up ruining the careers of your bowlers, right? Even Varun Aaron had crazy pace, but That's not the only thing that it takes to make a huge career. So about Umran Malik, coming back to him, yes, dearly miss him. Would have loved to see how he would have been groomed by Bharat Arun at KKR. Was ecstatic about it when KKR actually went on to pick him. But very unfortunate that, even right now, he is really not in the mix. So hopefully, wherever he is right now, all of these guys, even Mohsin Khan to an extent, all these fast bowlers, why are they really falling off and just getting injured? Prasidh Krishna, he also keeps getting injured. It's essential that we understand that it's fine to not be able to bowl 150s consistently. You've got to ensure that you have the body for it. And once you are ready, bowl at that pace, bowl in good areas, you will get the wickets.
Yeah, I mean, Naman, you quite literally captured the sentiment there, and hopefully, Umran Malik does make a strong comeback. And before people come after us for talking about RCB for the longest time, Naman, let's quickly get your thoughts on the playing 12 that you think seems ideal for RCB. You did kind of list the batting order side of things, but again, for those who are joining in now, could probably shed some light on that. Yeah, you could shed some light.
So a lot depends on how they want to structure their bowling. If they want to play a second overseas pacer in Lungi Ngidi or a Nuvan Tushara, then Bethel doesn't make it to the 11. So let's talk about that first. In that case, they can have Virat Kohli opening with Phil Salt. Then you can sneak in Devdutt Padikkal at 3, which is not his most optimal position, but then he's your only option, and you've got to back him over there. Just give him 8 games, 10 games consistently, and he's bound to come good. He's a quality act. He can really play and he can cement himself. Just give him that shot, or alternatively, maybe one or Salt or Kohli moves down to 3, which I don't think is going to happen. So in this case, Padikkal slots in at 3. Then you've got Patidar at 4. After that, you've got. I would like to play Kronal Pandya slightly higher. Let's come to that later. You have a Patidar at 4. Then you'll have Liam Livingston playing in at 5, and then Jitesh at 6. Then you've got Kronal at 7, Bowie, Hazelwood, Suyash, Yash, and then as one of the impact players, you can bring in another bowler over there. You can bring in somebody like a Swapnil Singh in there as well. So that's how. And yeah, Lungi, sorry, Lungi will fit in the 11 in this kind of a case. Alternatively, what they can also do in such a case is play Patidar in at 3 and bring Krunal Pandya at 4. Now, Krunal has batted at 4 quite a bit for Mumbai and even slightly for Lucknow as well. I believe if you back him at 4, if you give him that role that, hey, you're going to bat at 4, you're going to dominate the middle overs along with Rajat Patidar, be there, and then you've got others to follow you at 5, 6, and 7. That way, when Livingston comes to bat, when Jitesh comes to bat, they can just unleash themselves and go hell for leather. That is another alternate that you can look at. And amongst all this, we are still not talking about the possibility of playing a Tim David over there. So, like, those are all the various permutations and combinations that they can play around with. So, a lot depends on what kind of bowling circuit that they would like to go in with. At this point, I would still go on to say play Patidar at 3, bring in Krunal in at 4. Then you will have Livingston at 5, Jitesh at 6. At number 7, it will be slightly tricky then. Who are you going to bring in over there? So, and then the bowling lineup just falls in the place. So it's critical. It's tricky what they do there, but these are the few options that they can consider. And
Yeah.
I know your next question coming in. Where do I see them? Uh, I mean, despite all the balance, despite us having spoken for close to half an hour about the team, I feel the chances are quite slim this time. I don't see them qualifying for the playoffs because of everything. I mean, Patida's captaincy, it's untested. Let's see how he takes to it. With regards to the bowling, again, like spin is not really inducing a lot of confidence. Pacers can be slightly inconsistent. They have a crazy batting unit, but at the same time, the same old worries still do worry me with when it comes to RCB. Have if they would have had that one bowler in the ranks who would have really induced the fear that batting oppositions would think that how are we going to negotiate these 4 overs. I don't think they can say that for any of these bowlers that they have in the ranks.
And yeah, Naman, I think that concludes our discussion entirely because all the RCB fans have left the feed after your very interesting
Sorry,
prediction, man.
guys.
I hope it's an anti jinx or whatever reverse jinx. Something happens and
I
RCB
hope
does
Siddharth
end
Dada
up.
is blessing me at this point.
Yeah, but then again, our live chat echoing quite a few thoughts as well. Achal goes on to say that Tim David at 7 would have been perfect. And again, Nathan liking your point about how we can actually do better for our pacers. And I think this definitely makes for a very interesting podcast discussion again. But yeah, Naman, I think although your prediction of RCB did give me a little bit of a heart attack, let's talk about the team they're playing first, right? Yeah, we have KKR, next. And again, a very interesting team assembled there. I think pre-auction, there was so much chatter, like Shreyas Iyer, why have they not retained him and all of that? Yeah, they come to the auction and they go after Venkatesh Iyer for like 23 crores and like there's bizarre things happening there. Yes, Naman, let's get your thoughts on KKR, which was, I think, your one-time favorite team, or possibly still is. You can shed some light here.
Well, first of all, if you're saying that KKR went for 23 for Venki a year, why did they have to go for 23? Because RCB were bidding next to them. So yeah, you guys also went that far for him. So that speaks, something that okay, he was in demand and he was in demand for certain reasons. And he has really shown the potential, and he has probably shown that he was retained ahead of Gill, and he has shown decently enough what he brings to the table. He's done well at opening, he's done well at three, he's done well at four as well. He is the versatile candidate. And well, I think it was a very good decision to not name him captain right away and hand it over to somebody like a Rahane who can. For him, it's no big deal. Like he has led in the past, he's led India to the most famous BGT victory ever, and for him, it's cool. He can do it without being bothered a lot. But somebody like a Venki, it can possibly take an additional toll on him. So good decision, great thinking by Venki Mysore and company there. So uh, glad to see that happening. And yeah, I believe they've had a fairly good auction as well. They managed to retain their squad. They managed to get a lot of players back, like Weber Roda in the auction. So good on them for doing that. And yeah, let's go on to analyze their squad further bit by bit.
Yeah, I mean, first things first, I think Anubhav literally, took this question from my mind about Jinkya Rahane as captain, right? I mean, are you excited to see Rahane the captain again? Quite a left field choice. Left a lot of fans flummoxed, like, what is this 60 chess going on? KKR, appointing someone like Rahane, but gives you confidence that KKR is in good hands this season.
Definitely. I mean, I've rated Rahane pretty highly throughout ever since I've been following him during the 2012-2013 season as Rajasthan Royals. The way he forced that partnership with Rahul Dravid over there. I've loved his batting ever since then. Was very disappointed when he started resorting to those funky shots and not sticking to his classy drives. That was a really frustrating phase, and that is something that possibly led to his downfall during those 2020-21 seasons. But then again, the way he has been playing over the past season or two, and the way he's led Mumbai in this Mushtaq Ali Trophy this time, like the way he was batting there was exceptional, and those were classic Rahane shots. He was not playing rash shots. He was lofting the ball with the straight bat, and when you see that with Rahane, you know that he is in his right mindset. He is in the rich form that he requires to be. So really not surprised by that call. In fact, I called it right when they had picked Rane that he's going to be their captain. I'd been echoing that ever since then, and the moment the call was made, not surprising for me at all. I believe he mainly Rahane's job over there is to make sure that he gets the most out of the resources around him and just go out there and express himself with the bat. He doesn't need to be their lead batter. He needs to be their captain who marshals the troops ahead. And of course, just be himself and play like he does. No need to be funky. No need to be cool. Let the others do the swanky ass stuff.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough, makes sense. I think, like Nalin, a lot of fans felt this. They would have probably liked Shreyas Iyer to be retained in KKR. But I think a lot of like backroom discussions gives us the impression that Shreyas himself didn't want to possibly continue, and he wanted to look at other IPL franchises and just go for money in the auction. So I don't know if loyalty is a thing for a lot of players.
Well, a couple of things about that, to be honest. So, well, first of all, obviously, money would have been in the discussion. I mean, he is an IPL winning captain. He would know the amount of money players can go for. He saw Stark being picked at 24.75 in the previous season. And if he's the IPL winning captain, he's the Indian batter, he's the lead Indian batter, the kind of World Cup that he had recently, he would want that kind of money, to be honest. And if he would not have been paid that, then it's probably fair on him, first of all, from a monetary perspective. And second, also from the prospect of going back to the coach with whom he started his real leadership journey, which is Ricky Ponting at Punjab. I'm absolutely sure Ponting would have had a word with Shreyas that, hey mate, come to the auction. We are definitely going for you. We are getting you. Let's recreate what we had at Delhi and let's win a championship together. I'm pretty confident that that dialogue would have gone on between them, and I wouldn't blame Shreyas too much. I mean, we know how we know the shelf life of a cricketer, and the kind of form he's in currently, the way his stocks had risen over there, it's absolutely fair for him to go and try to get the best deal that he can. And his contributions exactly are unmatched. I mean, he sacrificed his own position back at KKR just to make sure that the opening combinations were going. He literally moved up and down the order throughout, and he did that at a fairly decent click as well. He got those runs, he got them at a quick rate. So he's done everything that you can expect of him. I've rated him fairly highly throughout, and sad to see him go away from KKR, but really excited to see him go to Punjab. And we actually discussed that yesterday as well, how well I see him going over there. So disheartening, being an ex KKR fan is well disheartening to see that the guy who led him to the third title go. But then again, it's absolutely fair. I do not blame him. If questions about loyalty and everything come up, then I believe those who are raising those questions, if they are corporate employees, then let's just ask them how much would they like to stay at the current employer if they're getting a 50% bonus hike. I mean, being in the same situation myself, I'm not sure what I would have done. That's all I can say at this point of time.
Yeah, I'll probably clip this part, Naman, and send it to your new employers because they would love to hear this. But just kidding. And
Yeah.
honestly, I think Nalin's point here that he wants more eyes on Shreyas side, because you look at this guy as a potential captain for India in the future as well, possibly across formats. You never know. And I think with the
Undoubtedly.
contracts also coming in, BCCI would probably renew his contract after the magical time he has had, right?
Undoubtedly, and we discussed about Ayer even in the podcast in the show when we were previewing the Bangladesh and New Zealand Test series. Even there, I mentioned that Shreyas, I've been absolutely gutted the way he has been overlooked. In the T20I setup, yes, others have probably delivered in a different style that the team is looking at, so it's fair to not probably include him over there. ODIs, undoubtedly, I would have really wanted him to be the next captain, and when he was included back in 21 in the Test setup as well, I was really happy. I mean, for two reasons. First of all, him being there, and second, he debuted at my hometown, scored a 150 on debut. So those feelings also kind of echoed somewhere or the other. And really disappointed that his shortcomings with the short ball were really made a very big fuss about. And the way he's begun to negotiate that has also been pretty good. So yeah, I feel like too much of discussion with Shreyas right now during the KKR segment. But yeah, he definitely, I would love to see him, make a very strong case for the Indian captains in the future. And yeah, maybe okay, let's come to that towards the end.
Yeah, yeah. Again, I think this is another discussion we can have another day. But thanks, Nalan, for that question. And just kind of getting us thinking. But Naman, another sentiment that's being echoed in our live chat is that of Rinku Singh, right? Ujjwal
Oh, yeah.
feels that Rinku will have more responsibility this year, unlike last time. I think even Anubhav goes on to add that Rinku will have to take up that finisher sort of a role that Hardik did for India. I'm going to ignore the second part of it because it sounds just very salty. But Naman, again, what do you make of Rinku Singh? Could this be that sort of a season for him again with Virat's bat?
I mean, he has to be there. He's been critical for KKR in the past 2 3 seasons, and last season he didn't really have a lot of role to play because the top order was going gung ho, and he kept slotting down the order. I mean, when Venki Iyer is coming in at 4 or 5, Shreyas is coming in at 5, then but naturally he would end up getting slotted down further. We've had somebody like Raghuvanshi in the lineup. We've had somebody like Rana in the lineup. So like yeah, it was quite natural. But this time I believe he will bat more consistently at his spot, which ideally should be number 5. And I was really gutted when he didn't make it to the T20 World Cup for West Indies last time. I mean, the call was between him and the other all-rounder, and fair on the other guy who actually made it there. But really sad to see him not being there. And he's shown his class, and the one, like, obviously those 5 6s against Yash Dayal are there, but the moment where he really staked his claim was that game against Afghanistan when he stitched that partnership with Rohit Sharma. That is when he really broke the door down to make that spot his own. So really looking forward to him. He is going to be a critical key because if there's a collapse, he's the one who's got to really play the ball around for a while and then go for the big hits, which he absolutely can. So he has to play a critical role there at number 5.
Yeah, keeping my fingers crossed, and I think you would too, that Rinku has that sort of a great season. We've seen his power hitting can go to that sort of a next level. And let's maybe address this comment that Ujjwal put in early on that, KKR has kind of, got their squad. At least 9 out of 12 guys from last year are still there. So, Naman, somewhere do you still think this keeps KKR in good stead and kind of balances out the strengths and weaknesses as well?
It does to an extent, but let's not forget three major architects over there who are the three who are not here in the picture. Phil Salt, his starts in the power play were absolutely critical. Who have they replaced him with? They've got Quinton de Kock or Rahmanullah Gurpas. Good prospects, great talents, but are they really at this point of time? Quinton is probably past his prime. Rahmanullah is probably approaching his prime, and Phil Salt was right there. Do they really have it in them to emulate exactly what Salt did? Maybe, maybe not. We'll figure it out. Then we talk about a Mitchell Stark. That Stark hole has still not been filled in their bowling lineup. I mean, he did not have the best of the starts. He was really just trailing away in the middle. But the way he bowled in the playoffs, despite no matter what happens in the 14 games, if you have your Stark in your lineup, you would want him to take the first ball in a playoff game. Him not being there is a big miss. And then, of course, the captain, whom we have discussed at length, the kind of changes he would make to the field, that somewhere or the other, somebody like a Rahane, who's an astute captain, is going to bring that element. And then, of course, Gautam Gambhir. He was a great presence behind all the on-field calls being taken. His absence is also a critical factor. So these four names who are not there in itself are big enough to make a very significant difference. And it's going to be seen now in their performances whether they've actually managed to fill in those gaps or not.
Yeah, interesting times, I think, for KKR as well. And even just looking at all the weather reports, right? Like the ground is entirely covered, there's rains coming in. So I don't know what to expect for this first match as well. But Naman, again, how does KKR's playing 12, sort of figure out for you? Yeah.
So I would start with De Kock. Then you can have De Kock and Narayan at the top. Rahane slots in at three. Alternatively, you can open with him as well, and then one of the other can slot in at number three. But it makes more perfectly if you're opening with De Kock and Narayan. Let them go bang bang bang, and then Rahane can do his job at number three, which he has done in SMAT as well recently, and did it for CSK pretty well too. You have Rahane at three, then you have somebody like a Venki who can come into bat at number four. Then after that, comes the RRR combination of Rinku, Russell, and Ramandeep. So those three RRRs slot in over there and make the next seven. Then when it comes down to the bowling, obviously Varun Chakravarti, the kind of comeback he's made. I mean, 12, 14 minutes into the discussion, we've still not spoken about Chakravarti. Man, he has been a revelation. So he would be there. Then in your bowling, you have Vaibhav Baroda, Harshit Rana, and the other pacer coming in the form of Spencer Johnson. Now, this is where my issue comes. Spencer Johnson is a decent backup for Stark, but is he really the same level of bowler? I mean, I remember in the last auction when Gujarat and KKR were having the bid war for Stark, Gujarat ended up bagging Spencer Johnson, and that too for quite a fat paycheck. But he didn't really feature a lot in the games for them. The bit that I've seen of him in Australia in the recent times as well, doesn't induce the threat that somebody like a Stark would do. So that hole still is a bit unplugged. They have somebody like a Chetan Sakari in the ranks who can also come in, but then again, their fast bowling is really, 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 really not inducing the fear that you would want to. So all of the pacers will have to over deliver in order to make a good case for the team. Spin wise, they are absolutely amazing. They have Chakravarti, they have Narayan, they can bring in a Markande if required in between. They also have Moin Ali who they can bring in for some offies if they're playing at a deck like Chennai. So you can probably leave one of the openers out. Nokia, of course, he's there, but then he is also blow hot, blow cold. He can have his off color, he can have his off days, he can have his good days. So, like, not not inducing that much confidence in you. He can do good, but he can go for so many runs. About Raghuvanshi, of course, would love to see more of him, but in the current setup, I don't really see where he would fit because you've got to play one of De Kock or Gurbaz. The only other keeping option you have is in the form of Loveneet Sisodia, but then you would want one of these at the top of the order to partner Narayan or whoever plays at the top. If Narayan is opening at the top, I do not see Raghuvanshi in the 11. And if Narayan is slotting down, then you would want Rahane to open first and then Venki at 3 and so on and so forth that can follow. So yeah,
Fair
Narayan
points.
becoming beast with the bat, of course. Well, let's see how it goes this year. It was a punt that worked out immensely well over the last season. So let's see if the law of averages catch up and whether this year is ends up being a slump with the bat for Rahane or not. We'll see. Even if it happens, they have enough resources to restructure the batting order around. Then they can actually have Rahane at the top, maybe squeeze in Raghuvanshi at three, and then Venki at four, or alternatively, then the RRR follows, and so on and so forth. So they know the change. We can think of the change they would have to make if Narayan doesn't work at the top. So pretty settled unit in that regard. The only
Yeah, I mean,
question is with the overseas bowler. That's a gap.
yeah, yeah. Definitely. I mean, a lot of combinations here that they can sort of explore with, if Narayan probably doesn't have that sort of a season. But I think Ujjwal probably read my mind with respect to the next question. Naman, my question is going to be your prediction on where KKR is going to end up, because Ujjwal says, that KKR will possibly miss out this time around. He goes on to list the weaknesses and the strengths, similar to what you'd said as well. But your prediction on where KKR is going to end up this time?
I agree with Ujjwal on this. I think they have a very good unit. They have a balanced squad. But then again, the thing that I keep mentioning, the pace, like they have Rana and Arora being their main two bowlers, and then one of Nokia or Spencer is going to play. And I'm not very bullish over their pace attack. So I myself do not really see them making it to the playoffs because of those reasons. Great batting order, but this is where they might struggle in terms of the pace. And at the top as well, they will really need Narayan to go big. If he doesn't, then their plans really go for a toss.
Interesting call there, Naman. Let's see how the season kind of plays out for KKR. And quickly, before we jump on to LSG, let me actually get your thoughts on KKR's jersey, right? I mean, again, mixed reactions from people I saw. But I think I kind of liked the design. It was very simplistic and everything. But yeah, on an unrelated note, what did you make of the jersey?
It's fine. Like they had one of the most pathetic journeys in the last season, and they went on to win the cup. Nobody's talking about the jersey right now, man. This is one of those
Okay.
talking points like RCB's unbox. That's it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that one hit home. Okay, Naman. But let's talk about another interesting team with a very interesting jersey. That's Lucknow Super Giants, right? Uh, I'm sure everyone must have seen that interview where Jatin Sapru was in talks with the owner and Rishabh Pant, and how excited he was for that bid. I think the whole squad, which was also kind of confirmed by the owner, was that they wanted to purchase Rishabh Pant at any cost, and they kind of wanted to build a squad around him. Right, they were ready to splurge like how much ever possible. So, Raman, what did you make of the squad? It was a reset button for them moving on from KL Rahul and also the toxic boss jokes and everything. But happy with the squad that LSG has put up.
I mean, if you look at the first six names, absolutely happy. If you look at the next six names in their batting lineup, devastated. Dude, they have, first of all, the fact that they were retaining Mohsin and Mayank, two of the most fragile bowlers, is nuts. I mean, it's good to back them, but then it is the kind of gamble that MI took with Jofra Archer, and it didn't pay off at all. It just gave them negative returns, and those returns meant not qualifying for the playoffs. I mean, it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. You've got to back one of them and be slightly, balanced with their approach. But they took that call, and then even after that, they did not get very good overseas pace bowlers. They got people like Akash Deep, they got Avesh Khan, who are pretty good bowlers in themselves. I'm not denying that. But if your pace attack, if your top four pacers are Akash Deep, Avesh Khan, Mayank Yadav, and Mohsin Khan, I'm sorry, it doesn't really induce fear in the opposition. The same question that the same comment that I keep making about bowling attacks, good bowlers, but batters would not mind hitting them. Batters would not mind stepping out against them. I mean, barring Mayank Yadav's pace, they wouldn't really mind that. And all of them have been fragile. Avesh Khan has probably picked up wickets, but he's been blow hot, blow cold. Akash Deep as well, he hasn't really hit the straps that well in wide ball. So their decisions around their bowling were absolutely, I would say, reckless in my opinion. They could have been much more calculated in that approach. The only overseas pacer they have in their ranks is Shamar Joseph, who too, like, they managed to RTM him, and Mumbai were like, "ठीक है, आप ले लो." So it didn't like. I'm very disappointed with the way their bowling attack is structured. Their batting is amazing, but then it is like those that meme with a horse drawing. First couple of frames are very beautiful, and in the last couple of frames there's just a line that's been drawn. That's how I would like to summarize this team on a sheet.
I mean, Naman, fair points. We will talk more at at length. I actually wanted to get your thoughts on the Rishabh Pant purchase itself, right? Because Naren goes on to say that Pant to LSG kind of makes sense. He's one of the few who can handle Goenka. Owners need to give captains freedom, and Pant can manage that really well. Wish he was in RCB instead, Naren letting his RCB sentiment get the better of him. But the first part still makes sense, Naman. Like Pant in a place like LSG could possibly work out really well for him, and they could actually strike this cordial partnership, and that could mean trophies for LSG.
See, everything said and done, I believe one of the major reasons behind getting somebody like a Pant in LSD has a lot to do with the marketing of the franchise. I mean, no disrespect to Pant the player, but having him in the team already makes LSG one of the more followed teams in the season because people would like to watch Pant. People would come into the ground to watch Pant play. Other than that, I've myself been to games in Lucknow. For the past 2 seasons, I've been going for the Lucknow CSK game. That is the only game that has really fetched a lot of tickets. Other than that, people haven't really shown up to the ground as much. You can see that in the ticket pricing, you can see that in the availability of the tickets. People do come. But now that Pant is playing, they're going to fill more seats, they're going to sell more merchandise, and so on and so forth. So, from that perspective, he is already pumping a lot of revenue to the team. About handling Goenka, well, having seen all the news reports and everything, I would not really like to comment too much over there because let's just leave it to the franchise. I mean, he can still handle somebody to a certain extent. No matter who you are, he is the guy who is earning 100,000 times more than you are. And despite of how his IPL team would work, he is still going to make money in his business. So we've got to be a bit more realistic about these things. If you hurt the ego of somebody as big as him, he would probably not care enough. He would probably get some other players, pay them 4 5 more crores, and get them in the team. So handling Goenka, while to an extent it looks like okay, he's a bigger player, he can have an attitude of himself. If Goenka has that sort of mindset, but again, saying it on the basis of what I've seen so far in the news, if he has that sort of mindset, if he's that headstrong about the things that he believes in, if he can really scold his captain on live television, then I do not think just because he's a Rishabh Pant he can handle Goenka. He might be a bit more assertive as compared to somebody like KL Rahul, but that also comes with the personality. Like Pant is a more of a chirpy, cheerful, assertive person, and KL is one of that acha bacha of the gharana. So I mean, oh, well, that's quite a harsh word to be honest, Ujjwal. But I mean, let's see, yeah, let's see how it goes, and it will be interesting to see how the combination works out. And I hope that the owners are not too much involved in the process. I hope he just gives it to Langer and Pant. Langer loves Pant. He has been speaking praises of him ever since the BGT. Just hope Goenka leaves it to the two of them and let's see what they bring.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed again, to see how this partnership kind of plays out because the Justin Langer point is so lovely. I think in all of his commentary stills, he has spoken about the kind of fear that Pant can induce in bowlers and how much he's in admiration of having someone like a Rishabh Pant in his IPL side. So quite excited to see how that plays out as well. But Naman, I think in this LSG conversation itself, you spoke about their amazing batting line, right? I mean, just look at the batting. You have the likes of Mitchell Marsh, you have Rishabh Pant, you have Eden Markram, you have Nicholas Puran as well, and David Miller to just add, right? So again, do you think this gives LSG that sort of an advantage that boss, we have such a good batting, we're going to go the SRH strategy of 2024, put up those big scores and then possibly, have our bowlers defended?
That's fair, but SRH still has bankable bowlers who might travel for runs on certain days. With LSG, already your two retained players are out of the season. And even I think Akash and Avesh are also facing injury concerns. If somebody can confirm that on the chat. The last I read, they were also not at their fittest. So already makes it very slim from that perspective. I mean, they have gotten somebody like a Shardul Thakur as a replacement, but let's be honest, his white ball stocks have not really been where you would expect them to be. He had his golden years with Chennai, but ever since then, he has gone across teams. He's gone to Delhi, he went to KKR, he went back to Chennai again, but didn't really get going as well as one would expect. So, I mean, they have a formidable batting lineup. They have one of the most fearful batting lineup, and we'll go on to discuss their batting order in a while. But it just their bowling is, I mean, you can see my face right now. I do not know what to say much more. I do not mean any disrespect to the players that they have picked, but from a strategy point of view, I feel, and this coming from Zahir Khan, him being at the helm, him being on the auction table, maybe he wanted to back the Indian Pacers, but I still feel they could have hedged their bets slightly better than what they did over here. And I won't be surprised if they go on to leave at least two of these Indian bowlers into the auction and pick up some foreign bowlers in the next season.
Yeah, that could possibly play out because I think you did mention, the injury concerns about Mayank Yadav and Mohsin Khan as well. The whole Shardul Thakur angle also coming in. But I think Ujjwal's point here kind of makes sense because the punch choice, okay, 27 crore, all of that fine. But that left them with, six players and 46 crores, and they could have possibly gone for like a Rabada, a Bolt, Stark, and, balance it out with like Indian openers like Rahul Tripathi as well. So, Naman, in the presence of this situation, I mean, they can't go back to the auction and undo things. But now with Mayank Yadav and Mohsin Khan out, like, how do you think LSG is going to possibly, manage their resources, especially in the early games?
It's gonna be difficult. It's really gonna be difficult. I mean, because let's exactly they were injured even before the retention, so it was a big punt that they had made. Now, if we look at the bowling attack, if they probably have to play Shamar Joseph in this case, there's no other option. Either you go on to play Akash Singh. That's an option that they can possibly consider. If it's the same Akash Singh, I think it's the same Akash Singh who played for India under 19. But then again, you're going for somebody who himself is not a tested player. So their pace bowling, I mean, they have somebody like Hunger Gaker in their ranks who can also come into the picture. But again, you look at their bowling stocks and you don't feel very confident. All of them will have to bowl out of their skin in order to really, defend the kind of totals that they can bat, or that they can sorry, they have got to bowl out of their skins to defend total set by the batters. And even when they are bowling first, they'll have to make sure to restrict the oppositions. I mean, they can concede as many. The batting lineup can have the confidence to chase it down, but when they are batting first is when it's going to be concerning, because with that bowling lineup, and let's also come to the spinners now. They have Ravi Bishnoi in their ranks, but other than that, with regards to the spin, they have a Shahbaz Ahmed. Even with the spin, they are slightly thin. Let's be honest about that. They have Manimaran Siddharth, who is also pretty new. He's somebody they've utilized in the power play. But then again, none of them are inducing fear in you. Their entire bowling lineup is not inducing fear in an opposition. And that is where I believe they have been a very big miss with regards to their planning. Their pacers are injury prone, their spinners are not very threatening. And Lucknow's pitch is definitely a belter, but even there, it's a belter for both the sides. The other team can also score as many runs as your team can. Then, if you talk about the due factor, that also BCCI has managed to negotiate, like negate with the new rules coming into the picture. So yeah, altogether, the bowling is not very inspiring. Um, Slightly
Yeah, I
disappointed.
mean, clearly, like Lucknow, robbing the smile of Naman's face, and just I don't know, like a lot of things don't clearly seem to be working out well for them. So I think this season's going to be a tough one. But Naman, in this situation, with whatever resources are still there, what does that playing 12 look like for you? And let's also probably get your prediction after that.
First things first, Rishabh Pant has got to open. Come what may, Rishabh Pant has got to open. I mean, the kind of player he is not the biggest six hitter. He can hit them, but he's not the biggest six hitter. His strength lies in clearing the 30-yard circle, and that is why he has had the success that he has had in tests. He should open, maximize the power play, do something like a Travis Head does, and just keep clearing the circle, hit boundaries, keep clearing the circle, hit boundaries. He has got to open, in my opinion. So if we talk about the playing 11, I would have Rishabh Pant opening at the top with Mitchell Marsh. Absolutely crazy. Both of them go hell for leather. Do what Head and Marsh have done for Australia. Same model. Open with the two of them. You can have Markram coming in at number 3. He's somebody who can balance all the situations. If he has to come in early, he can negotiate that. If he has to come in at a set platform, he can do that. I have Markram coming in at number 3. Then I will have Pooran coming in at number 4. We've seen what he can do. The way he has done well at Lucknow ever since he's gone there. He's been absolutely crazy. And then you will have Miller coming in at number five. Miller five, Badoni six, or Badoni five, Miller six. They can rotate that around. That already counts for your four overseas players, because anyway you do not have any overseas pacers. So utilize your overseas batting talent in your top six, and just give it to them to score 230 to 40 every game, because they'll have to do it with the kind of bowling resources they have. They've got to score minimum 200, 220 every game to stand a chance to win. So that's how I see the top six shaping up. Then beyond that, at number seven, they can have somebody like a Shahbaz Ahmed, who will also be one of their spinners. Then you will have Ravi Bishnoi, who will be the other spinner. And in the bowlers, whoever is fit plays. That's how it has come down to, like, whoever is fit, whoever is available, they will just go on to play. And if everybody is fit and available, then we can probably go on. And since Shardul has made it, he's definitely going to play. He's going to be one of them. So let's say, yeah, you will have Shahbaz at 7, Shardul can slot in at 8, then Ravi Bishnoi at 9, then Akash, Avesh, they are probably the two more obvious ones because of the injury concerns. And among their impact candidates, they have Abdul Samad, they have Arshin Kulkarni. So they can bring the two of them in basis the situation where they find themselves in. If they just need somebody to come in and talk the ball, then maybe Abdul Samad is the more likely option. If they lose a lot of wickets up front because of their approach, then Arshin Kulkarni can be brought in and he can try to rebuild the innings. They also have an interesting choice in Aryan Juyal in their 11, who has been who has been traveling in the IPL. He was with Mumbai for a couple of seasons. He has done decently well for UP. His numbers are not the most inspiring when it comes to limited overs, when it comes to T20 Is, but he's a very decent backup to have for an Indian batter. So he can also be probably thrown into the picture, and he's a local lad. He knows the conditions, so that is where he can bring certain elements into the picture. And they also have a Rajwardhan Hangargekar, who has been around but hasn't been utilized. So, probably given the lack of bowling resources, he can be thrown into the middle and see what he can do. So, the batting order is very sorted for me. Their two spinners are sorted, but their bowling, I mean, it's painful. It's very painful.
Yeah, definitely. And now that you were working, as the PR for LSG, you're already cutting like a sorry figure, like, "Ugh, the bowling is just non-existent and it's going to be so difficult," which is actually a fair point. And I think Nathan also goes on to agree with you that, Pant could possibly open, but he can also anchor the innings if there's a collapse. Like we discussed with Rinku, Pant can possibly, play that sort of a role. But talking about David Miller, Nalan has a slightly different take that he could possibly come up the order. I feel he deserves some freedom to bat up there. Now, your thoughts on this one?
I feel even now, Miller is coming in at number 5, and even with Gujarat, he was batting more or less around 6. For South Africa, he's been batting at 6 in that role. So it's a role that he's really been playing consistently across leagues, across formats, wherever he's been. So he fits in pretty well over there. The only thing that you can consider is moving Puran down to number 5, and moving Miller at number 4. That's the only possible option. But I feel, given the kind of resource pool they have, it makes much more sense to have Puran at 5, Puran at 4, and Miller at 5, because we saw what he did in the semi-final recently. So, like, yeah, if it is a tricky situation, if it is a place where you have lost two very early wickets, then maybe send Miller ahead of Puran to just balance things out, and then Puran can slot in at 5. That is the only situation where I see him coming ahead of Puran. But otherwise, if it's a good platform, you want Puran to just continue the acceleration, and then Miller to take it even further.
Fair point there. And I think Ujjwal also goes on to say that Akash Deep I think he meant Akash Singh there for power play and Avesh for
No, no,
Delhi and
Akash Deep.
Shardul with two.
They're both Akash Deep and Akash Singh. They're
Singh
both of
as
them.
well. Okay, both
Yeah,
of
yeah.
them. Cool, cool. Which is again a fair shout. Probably they can experiment with that, right?
They can definitely do it, but then again, if I'm in the opposition dressing room, I'm telling my batters, just just go smack them out of the park. No disrespect to all of them. I would love to be proven wrong on this. This is the one segment of these two episodes that I would love to be proven wrong on, if their bowlers can do something well. I would be called a stupid person, but I would love if they can prove me wrong.
Honestly, yeah. And Achal, I agree with you that they're making the sorry videos with Miller. At least for me, it's in such bad taste. Like you can see Miller is clearly uncomfortable, but then I'm not sure. Naman, if you haven't checked it out, I will send you the reel. It is just, I don't know. I
I
don't know
haven't
what
seen
to
it
make of it.
actually. So yeah,
Good.
probably feel free to spoil my feed with that.
Absolutely. And also,
Sorry,
Naman, your
actually, if you
prediction
have sent it to me and I haven't seen it. I'm sorry for that.
and
Quite
also,
a
Naman, yeah, like your prediction on LSGs, they're not making it to the playoffs, right? I mean, with
lot.
such a interesting squad, whatever's happening there, it's going to be really tough.
Like they'll have to score 280 every game. That's the only way.
Okay.
Good one, Ujjwal. Let's see what happens. Good one.
Yeah. And another good one coming in there from Nalan
That's
as well.
that's that's what I intended, Nalin. Thanks for picking that up. That's exactly how I intended it.
Yeah, I mean, let's see the kind of season that LSG has, right? I mean, if they come out of syllabus and end up making it to the playoffs, I think it is going to be a story that all of us are going to remember after shitting on them so much in our stream. But yeah, that kind of brings us to our last team under focus, which is Rajasthan Royals, right? Now, but first things first, Sanju Samson is going to be playing as a specialist batter. We have Rian Parag who's going to be leading the side. What you make of this very interesting development, right? Because Rian Parag, considering the kind of seasons he had up front, then coming of age in 2024 to now leading the side, right? Massive stuff.
Indeed, indeed. And like to begin with, starting the discussion on Rajasthan Royals, if Anubhav is watching this stream right now, it's slightly painful for me to talk about this team because of certain things that went on at college. I was very close to working for the franchise through a competition, but yeah, things didn't work out that way. So if anybody from Rajasthan is watching, guys, please reconsider the deck that I had submitted. Again, coming back to what we were talking about, yeah, I think they've had a good auction. They've they've tried to fill in the gaps that they had been left with. Rian Parag definitely is a big story coming out of them. He has really come of age. He has shown that for Assam in the recent times, being the captain, his last IPL was just absolutely amazing, and he has also made it to the Indian side, and he has played a few games over there. So very early days for him in the Indian setup. Of course, is not there in the first choice 11, probably not even in the 15. But good signs for his progression as an individual, and great signs for Rajasthan as well, since he's also going to be leading them in the first three games where Sanju is not completely available due to his injury. So altogether, yeah, he's got to play a very critical role in their setup moving further.
Yeah, and really rooting for him to come good, possibly. I mean, looking like very futuristically, he could be a possible India option, India captain option as well. But again, I think that's a little far fetched, and Naman might just spit the
Far.
water that he
No, no,
drank.
no, no,
Yeah,
no. That's what
too
I'm.
far. Yeah,
That's very far indeed. But like at the same time, we've also got to look at the fact that he's just 23 years old.
yeah, yeah.
He's literally 30 days younger to me.
Oh my God, yeah. That puts a lot
Yeah,
of things in perspective.
it
Okay.
it definitely does. He's so early into his career. He's already played for the franchise for 6 years, and people have just been trolling him left, right, and center, including myself, guilty as charged. But even at the age of 23, if he is making it that big that he is the guy to lead his franchise in the absence of the regular skipper, that speaks multitudes for the talent that he possesses. So, I mean, Indian captaincy, obviously, very far fetched thought, but then again, he's pretty young in his career already. So, yeah, we wouldn't completely count that out, but yeah, we are too early to talk about that at this point of time.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think I probably jumped the gun there, and let's probably give him time to just nurture and develop as much. But again, just looking at Rajasthan, right? They have such a strong Indian core. You have the likes of Sanju Samson, you have Yashasvi Jaiswal, and Dhruv Jurel as well. So again, do you think this gives them that sort of an advantage that they have such a young Indian core? And I think a lot of like former cricketers and experts have spoken about having that very strong Indian core, which will give you results as opposed to just investing so heavily on the overseas players and your Indian core not being that great. So some are happy with RR kind of sticking to what they know best.
So, if we look at the retentions, they've tried to retain their entire batting order except Butler. That's the only player that they haven't really retained. They have Jaiswal, they have Samson, they have Jurel, they have Parag, they have Hetmeyer. These people have retained the spot. So, I mean, I think once Sanju started opening for India and he hit those back-to-back hundreds, it reached a place where they can actually consider leaving out Butler sending Samson up to open, and then that would leave a hole at 3. How have they filled that? By bringing one of the most underrated Indian batters at the position, which is Nitish Rana. He has been among the consistent ones. He has had those 300 seasons consistently well. The only thing with him is he starts off the season pretty well and then plateaus towards the end, exactly like the franchise that he has joined. Like if you look at their curves over the past 3 seasons, over the past few seasons, that's exactly how it has progressed. Starting off on a great note, seventh, eighth, ninth game, amazing, and then just dipped down. So that's what they have done. And their batting order is that's where the batting order looks pretty much sorted on paper. And with the bowling as well, they have done the exact opposite thing that Indian franchises look to do. They usually look for overseas quicks and Indian spinners. They have done the opposite. They've got two overseas spinners who are pretty good in their own repute, and they have stuck with Indian bowling core. And of course, along with the big billion signing in Jofra Archer. So pretty interesting with the way they have approached their auction. But the one thing that we've already seen about Rajasthan Royals, and I also had the opportunity to hear it from their team itself, that they are not ones who look at big names. They are ones who believe in creating big names, and it has been evident in their history throughout. They've backed Sanju right from the beginning. They have kept him there, and he has now finally reached that place. They stuck with Jaiswal. They brought him in the setup. They batted him ahead of Padikkal in that 2020-21 season. Sorry, it was I think 21 or 22 season, whenever it was. They batted Jaiswal ahead of somebody like a Padikkal. They batted Jaiswal ahead of a Robin Uthappa even back then, just to back him and show that trust in him. They have backed somebody like a Dhruv Jurel so early into his career, believing that okay, we'll invest in him and he's gonna do pretty well. So they they really like walk the talk when they talk about nurturing Indian talent. And they even made a reel pretty recently with Taran talking about all the players having gone and him saying that okay, they are new kids, we'll cheer for them, we'll support them, we'll back them, and then they are the ones who are going to become big names. So their philosophy is completely reflected in the way they have picked their side.
Yeah, and kind of hoping they have that sort of a season as well. I mean, last season I think they just lost in the eliminator, was it? Or yeah, I think they did lose the eliminator or the qualifier too. Yeah, which was
They win
slightly
against
sad.
RCB.
Yeah, I was asking, how did I forget that? Okay, Naman, thanks for that. And Nandan also goes on to add that, yeah, I agree with Naman that Nitish Rana has a spark that he has fully realized, but if he clicks, it could possibly turn into a big international opportunity. An interesting one there, Naman, do you see an India call-up for Nitish Rana potentially, and do you see him there?
He did get the India call up back in 2021 when we were playing two different teams, one that was led by Shikhar Dhawan in Sri Lanka. So he got a call up over there, but didn't really, like he had very limited opportunities. So let's be fair to him. But it's a very far-fetched thought. I mean, you have too many of these players. You have a Nitish Rana, you have a Rahul Tripathi, you have a Deepak Hooda. All these guys who have gotten their India opportunities, and their careers seem to be going somewhat like Manish Pandey's did. Although Manish Pandey was around the squad for a lot of time, I really liked him as a player. But currently, the kind of setups that we have across the two white ball formats, I mean, it's very unlikely. The best thing for Nitish Rana right now is to be a big franchise player, something like what Rayudu brought to Mumbai Indians and then to Chennai Super Kings. So this is the kind of trajectory that I foresee for these guys. If he makes it to the Indian 11, well, that is going to be some story to look at.
Yeah, definitely an interesting one there. And Ujjwal also goes on to say that the good part is that with the Indian batting lineup, they have given themselves, they have a luxury to play around the overseas bowlers looking at conditions. So yeah, Naman, do you agree with this thought?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when we go on to start talking about the 11s, I'll highlight a bit more on that. And with the Indian batting, the Indian core, any team which has at least 9 Indian players that they can put on park in their first 11 is always gonna have all these degrees of freedom around them, and which is where teams like Mumbai Indians, team like Chennai Super Kings have done pretty well, and even Rajasthan Royals have been doing pretty well at that. They have good Indian players, not the most well-known ones, not the biggest brands, but good quality Indian cricketers. Let's talk about somebody like a Sandeep Sharma. His numbers are so similar to Bumrah's. I mean, obviously numbers don't tell the entire picture, but still, and he has been such an underrated cricketer throughout IPL's history, and they managed to get him in the setup. They've backed him, and they've made him one of their retentions, which of course under the Dhoni uncapped rule made a lot of sense for them to do. It was a great call, in my opinion, and it that luxury, of course, we'll go on to explore it shortly. How they have a lot of options that they can play around with.
Yeah, and I think Ujjwal also says that, they can probably play a Kartikeya and drop a Tikshana, play a Faruqi in, seam-friendly conditions like the Wankhede and Ahmedabad as well. And let's not forget, Shimron Hetmai has been, quite underrated with his finishing. Can't say the same when he was playing for a certain red franchise that I support, but okay,
Delhi
Ujjwal, I see
Capitals.
where you're coming from. Oh, yeah.
Are you talking about Delhi Capitals in 2020?
No comments, Naman. You know exactly which team I'm talking about. But another thing, right, about Rajasthan is that sometimes I feel like when you just look at this squad, they probably have very limited options in their batting department as well. So do you sometimes think that Rajasthan will be kind of, forced to play their first choice 11, or do you think, some surprise performers could actually, just take the cake?
I think they just have to go with their best 11 on the park, give it 6, 7, 8 games, and they've stuck with that philosophy throughout. They haven't really been the team that tinkers around a lot with their 11. We saw the way they backed Jaiswal last season when he didn't have the best of the starts, and then the way he went on to score. And see, that's the thing in a series like IPL, when you've got class players, if they've not been doing well for 4 or 5 games, you do not just lose all your hopes in them. You back them through. You give them more games, and then they deliver. And that is the philosophy that Rajasthan has, and even the coach. Rahul Dravid, he's not the kind of person who would just back out on players. He's going to back them. It's a very good reunion for Rajasthan and Rahul Dravid. They've had some of their best years, not in terms of results, but in terms of actual team, actual on ground performances, the unity of the team. They've had the best years when Rahul was there as captain, and then as a mentor. Now him going back there it's a feel good factor for me as well towards the franchise. So really looking forward to how he brings together this unit, and yeah, not really necessary to jump the gun and just leave players out after 2 or 3 bad outings.
Fair enough. And also, Naman, if you had to, factor in the strengths and weaknesses for Rajasthan, how is that looking like for you? I mean, it gives you the impressions of being such an exciting side with, so many talents being there, but then there are still some weaknesses that probably need to be addressed there.
Definitely, and the major glaring weakness that I see is their Indian pace attack. I think they are too reliant on Jofra Archer to have a good season. They are extremely reliant on Archer to have a good season, the way he has shown glimpses of in the past, the way he had once with them. But because of all his injuries, he hasn't really remained the same bowler that he was. So it's going to be absolutely crucial for them that Archer comes to his own. He really delivers and has a 2022 wicket season for them at an economy rate of 7 to 8. I remember one of those seasons where he had an almost MVP of the season kind of player kind of a season. He really needs to emulate that. I think that was back in 2020 or 21 when Steve Smith used to go up to open with Ben Stokes. That was around the season when those were crazy days, man. What all have we seen? But anyway, that's the kind of season you would need to have for Rajasthan to do well, because the other pace options for them are Sandeep Sharma, who obviously always delivers more than we expect of him. Then the other option there is Tushar Deshpande. He has surprisingly done pretty well for Chennai, and he's picked a lot of wickets. He has been among the top wicket takers in those couple of seasons. He's got to have a good season. Madwal is an option that they've really got to utilize well. He has got the potential. He's got to be groomed pretty well, and he is one of those players that I think can be a regular feature for them in the long run if they manage to untap all the potential that he has. They've got to groom him well. They've really got to make sure that he's played in the right conditions, bowled in the right scenarios. He's shown great potential, and he can be one of their franchise players in the future.
Yeah, and Ujjwal also says that Hasaranga is also very key for them. Might have to finish 3, 4 matches and has to, be quite dependable with the ball as well. And I think just talking about the earlier point, Naman, where Steve Smith and Ben Stokes were opening, Archer also played at number 4 sometimes in that season. So a lot of bizarre things happened,
Really?
in the past.
This
Yeah.
is something I don't recall. If it happened, I'll have to go back again, and it's going to be one of those 2 a.m. revelations for me that I will go out and out about. If Achal is watching, he knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's quite that's quite a thing. I'll go back and check the scorecards right after the show is done.
Fair enough. And Ujjwal also says that he actually wants Akash Madhwal to, get that many opportunities, very good skills up his sleeve. And I think a team like Mumbai would really be missing, the services of him. So let's hope he has a great run in Rajasthan Royal Colours as well. And yeah, Naman, I think it's fair at this point to kind of ask you, how does that playing 12 for Rajasthan look like? I mean, a lot of names would, I mean, the way they've retained, so these names are going to be in that playing 11. But how does the rest of the team, just play around them?
Definitely. So Sanju and Jaiswal open. You've got Rana at three. Then you've got Parag at four. That gives you two left-handers and two right-handers in your top four itself, which is always a good sign for any franchise. Then you can have Dhruv Jurel and Shimran Hetmeyer at five and six. They can probably rotate between the two of them as and when the situation suits. That forms your top six. Then, as your impact player batter, you can bring in somebody like a Shubham Dubey, who has been making his name a name for himself in the domestic circuit of late. So that can be their impact sub candidate. So that gives you seven batters and six spots gone in the team. Then you've got Hasaranga coming at number seven, and as rightly pointed out, he's going to be very crucial over there. He's got to be their link between the batting and the bowling. He's got to make sure that if he's getting 15 balls to play, he's scoring 32 out of those 15 balls. If he's getting 5 balls to play, he's got to score at least 15. And if he's coming into bat in the 12th or 13th over, he's really got to negotiate and play till the very end and give them the finish that they would require. So that's how I see Hasaranga fitting in over there at number seven. I would want to play Theekshana. Hasaranga and Theekshana, both of them feature in my playing 11. I believe it is among it will form among the better spin duos in the IPL because you're competing with the likes of Aksar and Kuldeep, Narayan and Chakravarti, Ashwin and Jadeja, probably along with Noor Ahmed. So these two playing together, controlling the middle overs is going to be absolutely crucial, and it can give a difference of 10 to 15 runs in the middle overs that they can concede less and put pressure on the opposition and induce wickets, which would in turn force them to go big at the death overs. So I would want to play both of them. And then for the bowling, they have Jofra Archer, who would obviously fit in. And then, so that makes it number seven, Hasaranga, eight, Theekshana, Jofra Archer, nine. Then they have two Indian quicks to pick. Sandeep Sharma would make it there. I feel Tushar Deshpande and Akash Madhwal, one of them makes it there, and the other one can be an impact sub candidate. So the impact sub candidates can be among Shubham Dubey and one of Deshpande or Madhwal, whoever doesn't make it to the 11. So if you just look at it right now itself, after the six batters, they have two spinners in Hasaranga and Theekshana. Then they have the three pacers in the form of Sandeep Sharma, Jofra Archer, and one of Madhwal or Deshpande. And then, it's probably more likely to bring in an impact sub for the bowling. And if they lose early wickets, then Shubham Dubey would slot in. So it's pretty much settled. They know what they have to do with the impact sub. They know what's their batting unit, what's the batting lineup going to look like. Archer is going to bat at number eight, to be honest. So he can really tong the ball pretty high as well. And really critical, those six, seven, eight, nine, those four overseas spots are going to be quite critical. Of course, the Indian batting is their impetus. It's the core of the franchise, but the batting finish that six and seven give, and the bowling with eight and nine, and obviously Hasaranga being sandwiched between them, is really going to be determinant of how they go on in the season.
Yeah, I mean, interesting times for Rajasthan. I mean, the way you make the playing 12 sound, I mean, they look like a very, very solid team on paper as well. So, Naman, yeah, let's probably get your prediction on where Rajasthan will end up, because I think so far in your top four, we just have what, three teams who have made the cut. So, I'm assuming Rajasthan is going to be a part of your prediction, yeah.
So let's revisit that once again. Okay, I see CSK making it for sure. I see DC making it. And then among three teams, two of them are what I'll be betting on: Mumbai, Rajasthan, and Punjab. Even among these, I think Punjab slightly ahead of the other two. And between MI and Rajasthan, depending on their key fast bowler, because their batting units are more or less very settled, absolutely threatening, and one among MI and RR will probably make it. And I will be slightly bold in terms of my predictions and go on to say that I do not see LSG and RCB qualifying at all. I mean, I'm sorry, guys. Two of the cities that I have made my own home, being from UP, lived in Bangalore, but I really don't see them making it to the playoffs. Even by extension, KKR as well. I'm not very confident on them. By extension, them. But other than that, out of those five teams, that's how I see it. Love to be proven wrong at the end of the season, but as of now, looking at things on paper, imagining certain scenarios, considering what the team environment could look like, this is how I see. And if MI are sneaking in, then MI CSK for the final. I mean, without asking, I'm going to say that.
And to all the folks watching in as well, do share your predictions. We would love to take it up and discuss. But there's a question of Ujjwal that I probably wanted to
Sure.
ask you as well, Naman. Yeah, his question goes as to
Oh,
we should lock in our orange and purple cap predictions, most sixes and most economical bowler. I think these are very interesting picks. We can definitely
indeed.
give it a shout.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, Naman, I'll leave it open to you. Do you have any picks right at the top of your mind?
Orange cap, I think Ruturaj Gaikwad. Because of the discussion that we had the other day, he's got to have a big season and it's got to be him. Like, there are many great candidates, the Shubman Gill, the Sanju Samson if he's opening, Jaiswal, but I think Ruturaj Gaikwad out of all of them. Purple cap, again, it's a tricky one. Um, Given the way he's been doing in recent times, probably Varun Chakravarti. Purple Hearts. So yeah, probably Varun Chakravarti. I mean, it was if KKR are gonna make it to the playoffs, he has got to pick loads and loads of wickets. Even if he does, there's no guarantee whether they'll make it, but he is one I feel can be the purple cap candidate. And most sixes, I feel it would probably be Ishan Kishan. He can be the one to hit long sixes. And most economical bowler, 45 plus overs bowled provided. That's a very good criteria, Ujjwal. I really appreciate that. That's one to think about. Economical. Hmm. I think Varun himself, he has a fairly good chance. Varun is one of the candidates. Apart from him, I feel if Bumrah is playing, then Bumrah for sure. No doubt. If
Definitely.
Bumrah is playing,
I
then
was thinking of someone like Bhuvi as well, but then 45 plus overs, thoda, it feels a
no.
bit of a stretch.
Movie is going to concede runs this season. His economy will probably be somewhere around 8.
Ooh. Naman is stuck with the number 8, it seems. Okay, Naman, we will revisit this prediction at the end of the season. RCB also doesn't make the cut in your in your final four predictions, so we'll talk about it later. But Ujjwal's predictions are also pretty interesting. Yeah, he goes on to say Tilak, or it could be someone like Tilak, Varun, Kishan, and Rashid Khan.
Oh,
Fair shouts, Ujjwal. Yeah.
good picks. I think we agree on one at least.
Yeah. And Nadan also goes on to say, give something to Harshit Rana also. That Delhi boy has a special fire. I think in the KK segment we did talk about Harshit Rana, probably not in as much depth as we wanted, but Nadan is someone who's a big fan of Harshit Rana. So let's see, the kind of season he has. And almost as we reach the end of our discussion, because we might have overstretched a little, but really nice to see the live chat being so lively. There's one question, Naman, which I think was asked by Anubhav, and I wanted to keep it for the end. But look at the live chat. I'm literally scrolling up to just find that question.
No worries.
Okay, this is going to be tough. But the question was about the Saudi league. Okay, so what do you think can be the impact of the new global cricket league announced by Saudi on IPL? So, Naman, again, I remember seeing a Jared Kimber explainer on this. A lot of people have been jumping the gun. They feel the whole hegemony could entirely be shifted because of this. So, are you someone who's going to believe in that?
Not really. I mean, BCCI is ahead by leaps and bounds at this point of time, and any league any league. Like the unique factor about IPL is that the Indian players play here, and the reason why that is an absolutely critical asset is the viewership. Now let's just talk some business here. Sorry guys, moving away from the cricket point here. Why IPL has really grown, people watch it, the viewership is quite high. That's where the marketing comes in, that's where all the funding comes in, and that's why it's the biggest league in the world. Indians primarily love to watch Indian cricketers. While the SA20s and all are going on, it fetches viewership, but not all Indians are going to watch an SA20 or a BPL. They watch Indian players for the IPL. They watch IPL for the Indian players. As long as these Indian players are not playing in any other league, they are not going to get the viewership that they would expect. If they won't get the viewership, they won't get the money. And as long as they're not getting the money, they wouldn't really be as big as the IPL. So that's how I see the economy building up for the sport. Although you see, Indian players, retired Indian players, legends playing in all these leagues across, but honestly, how much viewership do they even fetch? So it's all a game of the numbers that you can bring in. I mean, companies are pumping in millions and billions of rupees in their marketing and advertising spends just to catch those eyeballs during the prime time of summer. You see, every big brand is advertising over here. Not just B2C, even B2B brands are coming into the picture over here. It's become a brilliant marketing campaign for everyone across, and not just for companies, even for countries. You see the kind of Saudi ads we see during the IPL. You see, visit any country ads during any cricket league at this point of time. They know that to have a step in the door of the Indian audience, you've got to capitalize on the IPL, and which is why it's the league that it is at this point of time, and which is why BCCI is dictating terms at the global stage. They are getting the money. So it all boils down to it. And as long as us cricket purists would dislike the fact, it is the fact, it is the truth. And we've all got to accept it and just enjoy the league for what it gives to us.
And Naman obviously subtly flexing his MBA degree there, with, giving us the whole business and how all of that plays out. But I completely agree with you, Naman. I think it's really difficult to, see another league kind of supersede or just go above and beyond than the IPL already. And Ujjwal also has this one prediction that he feels that in this season the batting rates will probably go down a little, just that the mega auction effect is there, the bowlers being spread evenly, the two new balls possibly, and all of that coming into play. But Naman, I promise this is the last question as we wrap
No
up, right? You
worries.
have last and final thoughts for our listeners, for fans, what to expect from this IPL season, and how I hope some of your predictions come wrong, especially of teams that are qualifying.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, see, at the end of the day, these are just predictions, just thoughts that I think at this point of time, across the season, a lot of things will change. Would love to be proven wrong on a lot of them. Would like to be proven right on a few of them. So again, once the season starts, I'm going to forget what all I've said and just enjoy all the games that are there at the disposal. And let's see at the end how we come across. And that's the perk of being a neutral, not having any allegiance, not having any team to cry for. Just watch the cricket for the love of it, for the entertainment that it brings, and of course, like you rightly pointed out, for the business aspects, because that's how my eyes have been set on the league for the past few years. Love to do it always. And to the listeners, guys, thank you once again for spending your time here on the feed, being so active on the chat, giving us thoughts to talk about, asking all those provoking questions. Love the banter that you guys also bring to the picture here. Thanks, Nalan. Love to be on the show and talk to you all about it. And let's hope we have a cracker of an IPL up ahead. Hopefully, less hearts are broken. Hopefully, more cups are being won than hearts. And let's just hope for a cracker of a season.
Yeah, Naman, I honestly couldn't have asked for a fitting conclusion. And doing this, over 2 days was really, really fun. So thank you so much for joining. I know, the past couple of days have been very interesting for you with regard to a lot of shifting and, all of that potentially happening. But you were absolute game and really loved, this two-part series. We did it, we spoke for almost 3 hours, I think, and probably a little more. Probably if left in the room, probably we could talk for 5 to 6 hours. But yeah, thanks for joining in, Naman. It was really fun. And to all of our viewers as well, who are joining us in the live chat who will potentially join us in the comment section. Do let us know what you loved about the show, what you didn't like, if you have feedback, and what you are expecting from this IPL season as well. And if you've stuck around till here, it means you guys are real fans, and I love you. So thank you so much for that. And that's all, folks. Thank you so much. And take care, Naman. See you around again. And good night.
Good night. Cheers. Bye bye.